Welcome to Caribbean Lifestyle TV. This week our special guest, Miss Felicia Persaud, publisher Carib World News Network and the convener of Carib ID 2010. We're going to find out what Carib ID 2010 is all about, amongst other topics we'll be discussing this morning. Welcome, Felicia.
Thank you, Erwin. It's a pleasure.
This occasion has been long coming.
I know.
Great. You know, many people would have known you from the various media activities you're involved in. And I'm going to hold off on that for the moment and just start with the subject of the time, the subject that I think is significant to our community at this time, and that is Carib ID 2010. Tell us what that is all about so that we can get a better understanding on what it means for us as a community.
Hi, I'm Felicia Persaud, Chair of Carib ID 2010. In 2 years, the U.S. Census will again begin counting nationals across the United States. There are 16 categories on the U.S. Census form. West Indians is not one of them. It's time that West Indians across the United States stand up and be counted. For more information, you can call us at 718-476-3616.
Well, really, Carib ID 2010 came about because I just really got sick and tired of seeing the U.S. Census reports that said Caribbean nationals across the nation were just put at less than 3 million people. And I know, I mean, like many Caribbean nationals know that is, you know, that's a figure that's probably just in New York alone. And so, you know, I pretty much started asking the census, why not, you know, why is there no real accurate count of our people? Why is it that we're not getting these figures or facts about our community coming out during Caribbean American Heritage Month? And, you know, the census basically told me, well, we really don't have the real numbers on your community, so we can't do it. And so I began, you know, engaging other people, raising this grievance with other people, only to realize that many other people shared the same view, that we need a specific category on the U.S. Census form before we can actually get an accurate count of our people. Mm-hmm. And that's really how Carib ID was born, with people from organizations, the media, and everyone playing a real critical role in saying, yes, this is something that we're really in desperate need of. And so that's the fight. It's a huge battle that pretty much, you know, we've taken on. And it really is something that I think is going to go for many years, especially on the legislative front. But what has happened in the short term that we began speaking out about this in the past year, we've been able to engage the U.S. Census Bureau in Washington, meet with the directors there, and really raise what we can do for 2010. And that has led to, you know, many of the regional directors having conversations with us as to how can we actively engage your community. And so now, you know, we're happy to report that we've been able to work with the New York regional directors to make sure that come 2010, our own people will be actually in some of these leadership roles that the census is hiring, so that we can start getting a real accurate count of our community in New York. Because the census really is adamant that they want to make sure people are counted. Their concern is that Caribbean nationals especially, and immigrants on a whole, are not happy enough. They just don't want to fill out forms. Yeah.
So let me ask this though. Why is it important for us as a community to be counted, so that there's a better perspective of that? Why should we be counted?
It is so important, Erwin. If you look at what the Hispanics have been able to do since they've gotten their accurate count on the forms, and if you look at the way they're measured in terms of their spending, their block, their political influence, Caribbean nationals do not have that sense of power. We've seen so many people come out to the polls for Barack Obama at the recent election, yet you don't hear anything of the Caribbean American voting bloc. You don't hear anything of the Caribbean American spending power. And I think it's a matter of empowerment. So if we're going to be recognized for the important bloc that we are, this is why Carib ID is so important, because it's a matter for our children, our future in this country, whether we recognize, whether we're taking seriously. And it really is about, you know, all about empowerment, because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. The importance of the census in general, it gives us a sense of understanding as to how many people live in various communities so that federal dollars can come back. You care to expound on that?
It's billions of federal dollars. We're talking about billions of dollars that they chop up every year based on the census count every 10 years. So that's how communities are, whether they're getting services, whether our children are getting more seats in classrooms. It's about health services. It's about every aspect of our lives in this country. And that is why we see federal buildings that are going up in areas in upstate New York where the population is just a meager population, but the prison population counted from the urban areas is what is making that happen. And that's what I think our community has to really be educated about why the census is so important, so that we can understand why Carib ID and having a category of our own is really important.
Right, because it really addresses sensitivities of the communities as well. Because, I don't know if our viewers realize this, but whenever there are shortages of flu shots, it has to do with the census.
Everything, every aspect.
And you find now that, especially in cities like New York, where there's a high concentration of Caribbean nationals and immigrants, there is a higher propensity for the numbers to be undercounted because of the fear factor of reporting. Let us go into that now. When persons divulge their information, the whole information is not used for anything but for the census and statistics purposes, right?
Definitely,
okay.
Definitely. So people don't need to be afraid whether they're undocumented or legal residents or U.S. citizens. It's not an IRS issue, even if they owe the IRS. It's just a matter of saying, I'm here, I'm living in this country, and I want to have the same services, the same access that everybody else is having. This is why I need to be counted, and I think that is what we really need to. That's the message that we need to keep pounding on as we go into 2010.
Persons watching now and want to participate and get more information on Carib ID 2010, what is your charge? What is your demand of them and your charge to them?
Well, we really need people to get involved as volunteers in spreading and becoming ambassadors in the effort, because it's not going to happen. It's going to happen with mediums such as these that get the word out to many people to say, look, log on to our website at caribid2010.com, sign the petition, get involved, let us know how you can help to spread the word, because it's all a matter of getting legislation introduced, and that's really our biggest hurdle.
What has been the support from legislators as relates to this? Because I know that sometimes we are resistant to change.
A lot has been negative. I mean, especially when you look at our own Caribbean American community leader and our own Caribbean American congresswoman, who has been, really not as receptive or hasn't really shown any sort of interest in getting involved, really, or meeting with us on this. Surprisingly, the interest has come from both Congressman Meeks's office and Congresswoman Barbara Lee, because she sees it sort of an extension of our whole passage of that whole Caribbean American Heritage Month. So it's been surprising that an African American or two African American Congress people who you think would be sort of resistant and who would go with the whole issue that, oh, you're trying to divide the community and you're trying to break the African American community up, that they would actually see this as something that is definitely needed. In fact, you look at the people that we've met with in Congressman Clyde Burns' office, and his chief of staff was surprisingly receptive and said to us, well, what do you tick now? And, he didn't ask, well, why are you trying to do this now? Right. His whole issue was, you need to, to be at the table more. And you should have come to us when the Dominicans, who were actually fighting, surprisingly, for a box under the Hispanic.
And their numbers
exactly.
are pale in comparison.
But they now want a box of their own under the Hispanic category. Right. And so they were at the table from very early. And it's something that we need to do, and they recognize that. The only contention is that we're not going to be able to do that for 2010 because it's right around the corner.
Yes, correct.
So we have to change our strategy.
But as far as broad-based support out of Florida, for example, you have some support in Florida as well.
Not from the legislators or
what
the
about
Congress
community leaders
people.
there?
Community leaders all across the country. I mean,
Yes.
we've seen people from Atlanta. Atlanta is very energized around this. South Florida especially. D.C. And Maryland, Baltimore. So the support
Where
nationally.
especially where the enclaves of Caribbean.
Exactly.
Tell us again, Felicia, the website and where people can log on and get more information.
Totally. It's CaribID2010.com, and we're really urging you to get involved. CaribID2010.com.
And there are lots of opportunities for our community leaders to come on board, because this is an initiative that goes across the board. It has economic value, social value, political value, which is something that as Caribbean nationals living in the United States, we seek to empower ourselves. A firm way to empower ourselves and live out the dream that we came here for. You're watching Caribbean Lifestyle TV. My special guest, Felicia Persaud, convener of Carib ID 2010 and also the publisher of Carib World News Network. We'll be right back.